Hey, real quick, just so you all know, this is part 4 in a little ongoing series of Destiny 2 campaigns beaten melee only. You don't need to watch those videos first, but I do recommend it, and they will be linked in the description, along with some of the rules. Alright, let's get right into it. So, we ended off the Beyond Light melee only video with a bit of a surprise. Our build had gotten the first upgrade since, essentially, the Witch Queen. The shiny new Ophidian aspect gauntlets. Other than that, we've got the classic Glaive and Caster Sword combo. But I was riding that exotic high into the start of Lightfall here. And start we do. Watching through the intro cutscenes here as the Traveler goes, "Fuck you, get laser beamed." And Osiris goes, "You know who the best option to solve this problem is? The guy who can die now." We stow away aboard the ship, clambering through some vents, poking up some Cabal, taking in the views, and poking more Cabal. We yoink a keycard and get instantly karma'd because of that. Several times. I'm reacclimating to the playstyle, and very slowly at that. I am prepped and ready to beat the shit out of this Tormentor, and it goes about as well as you might expect, which is not well at all. We're confronted with my first big concern of this mission, which is the segment where we need to destroy the computer core of the ship. My first attempt to do so does not go well, and when I manage to make it back, it takes a few tries to figure out a technique that can actually damage the thing. Moving on, I have to mention this view again, it's just so good. I can't just not say something. So far, things are going pretty well. I'm feeling confident. There are some moments where things go badly, but it often feels deserved for how I was playing. I'm still getting back into the flow of the melee-only thing. I'm utilizing a lot of techniques I've been slowly developing over the last few campaigns, and things are still working. I'm once again concerned by the ship reactor, especially when I run out of sword ammo for the second one and have to melee it, and I'm terrified I might die and have to restart. It goes well, though, and we can move on to the hangars, where I take some time to clear them out. And this is where I can feel the difficulty curve starting to go up, as we finally enter the hardest part of this mission. For once, this is the Tormentor. There's a small issue with this melee-only run, and that is the fact that I cannot aim. Your normal or Glaive Melee kind of auto-tracks to a position on the center of the target, and that makes it incredibly hard to pop the shoulders of this fella. After that, we do pop a well, sort him down as much as possible, and we move into the main technique we're going to have to use against these guys. The hit and run strategy. This, however, manages to fail me right before the finish line, so I make my way back and apply it a little more properly this time. I then sprint, because I'm not going to die after that and risk getting sent back. I then plant my Cabals on the planet's forehead and begin making my way towards the final segment of this mission with absolutely no issues. No issues. Stop. No. Edit that out. Grabbing Strand here does scare me, I will not lie. Almost as much as my controller dying scared me, actually. I'm scared for my survivability, with how, I'm getting used to the conveniences of solar, but I do make it through on the second try, and beat the first mission of Lightfall, melee only. After some chatting with Nimbus Bimbus here, and a conversation with Osiris and Rohan, where I get confused and try to offer Rohan a small child, we begin the second mission of the Lightfall campaign. This one requires us to briefly visit the Cabal invading the city and borrow some keycards from them. I asked nicely, but they reject that, so I ask not nicely, and head off to quickly grab the other 3 cards. After pulling on my Destiny 1 roots, and adequately defending a door for 3 waves, I proceed to the first suppression zone of this campaign. Here we're working to take down the Shadow Legion Supply Master, whose name I'm not going to bother trying to say, and without my super, my ghost tells me I need to do things old school. I misunderstood this and went so old school that I didn't use any guns. This section does take a while and forces me to play a little risky at times, but after a good hour of attempts, I play just smart enough and take him down, beating the second mission of Lightfall, melee only. We then get to witness a witness Zoom call and talk to some people some more. Now we're on to Downfall, the third mission of the campaign. This one goes very typically. My attempts to join Calus' Discord server are prevented by these gatekeepers. Upon forcibly gaining entry, I make my way through the ship, once again abusing my inability to permanently die, and then struggle. A lot. With the most simple puzzle imaginable. After struggling yet again with a simple door opening puzzle, we make our way into this little hangar storage area place. The first part goes well enough, and then, once again, we are faced with a Tormentor. I will not lie to you, this is the first time I have ever been so intimidated by Tormentors, of all things. It took me ages to deal with this one in the fight, mostly because I had to use the hit and run tactics, because only when my abilities were up and I could heal and hit hard would I not die almost immediately to the stupid grab attack that I am always in danger of because I'm always in melee range. You could even say I was a pogo stick in this arena. I'm bouncing all around and just generally being annoying and avoiding everything. Eventually I commit to the bit, and it falls. I briefly emote to express my superiority, and then I am met with the true challenge of this section. This door has 4 switches instead of 3. After 5 minutes, actually, I timed it, I open the damn thing, and I have to express my genius. After that it's a short jump, a quick grab lift, a short jaunt, and another grab lift, and we're to the arena, which holds the radio mast. That difficulty curve I mentioned earlier just went to about a 85-degree angle. Folks, the name of the game here is upgrades. The first step is some build crafting, swapping out and upgrading the bits of armor I do have in an attempt to pull as much resist and regen out of them as possible. This is hard when everything is a base 53 stat. After a few more attempts with absolutely no changes in how things were going in the gameplay sense, I decided it was time to acquire the first of our many gear upgrades. After all, I knew we were going to need to prepare and grab some upgrades for the final shape run, so here comes the very first one of these. I need a glaive upgrade. The faithful Enigma has served us well since the very beginning of this whole thing, Mission 2 of the Witch Queen melee only run. But the big issue here is survivability. And the unrelenting perk that you can put on the Enigma does not activate on melee hits. And so, we bring in the Edge of Intent, the Warlock exotic glaive, whose exotic perk allows us to summon a healing turret after it fully charges. And, for a while, we see some improvement. I managed to make it over to the second plate in the arena, on the second run after switching over, which was upsettingly an accomplishment, and I make it there a little more consistently after that. But it wasn't enough. I'm still failing regularly and never managed to make it past simply standing on the plates in the room, much less dunking the balls in the right spots. So we come to upgrade 2. I had an exotic Ingram in my inventory, so I headed to the tower. There was only one exotic that really made sense. I spent some time at the end of the last video really hyping up these Ophidian aspects and how they were going to be a game changer, how smart they would have been. They were dog shit. I'm not going to lie to you. Friendship ended with Ophidian aspects. Karnstein armlets, my new friend. That's right, Karnstein armlets, melee heals, restore health for a short duration. It took some time to get used to, but the combo of healing turret, restoration from the armlets, combined with the more aggressive playstyle and the healing stuff from Solar, allow me to make it to the second segment of this encounter for the very first time. I grab Strand and clear the arena with absolutely no issue first try. I somehow managed to die on the Sparrow Racing segment because I still have a green Sparrow and I have just never bothered to upgrade that. And I'm not going to now because this was the only section where you actually need to use your Sparrow. I don't remember using my Sparrow at all in the final shape. So, there's that. But second try, we clear it pretty easy, and thus beat Downfall melee only. There's a bit of talking with Osiris, which I ignored to go basically Minecraft say hi to Keitel. And then we're off to see Nimbus, who I think was kind of hitting on Keitel. Zavala would not be pleased to hear this. And then we're off to Mission 4. Breakneck. With the upgrades we have in hand and my ability to abuse my resurrection privileges, I make my way through the first section of this mission pretty quickly. I debunk the claims that you're supposed to use the Strand melee on this door, which it despawns, you lose Strand before you get here. Why would you say that? Or that any melee hit opens it with one hit, also not true, and then begin the next segment. It takes a try or two and we're off, and then we eventually encounter the big issue with this mission. These Vex detainment zones, orb things. These are hard to melee, so I'm just kind of stuck in them unless I can use my sword, essentially. This won't be an issue later, clearly. That would never be the case. On to the next section, we clear out the Vex in the first room, get stuck, clear out some more Vex, and get stuck again. Clear more Vex, and then get stuck for a final time because it just kills me. Not entirely certain on this one, but I move through the segments again, having a strange amount of trouble in only this second room, before finally making it to the third room of this segment. Wait a moment, charging my abilities, before struggling to escape this containment zone. Pop a well, get to slapping, and the Hydra goes down. GG, easy, no re. We move on, whacking some Cabal, managing to die because I forgot how the jumping section works of all things, and entering the most concerning room in this mission. This room has two tormentors. The strategy here required me to frequently just hide behind this little column while waiting for my powered melee to recharge, because that was really the only way I had to pop the shoulders. And with two of them to worry about, my abilities were absolutely necessary to keep me alive. The final successful run of this took me, I think, just a few seconds under 24 minutes. But then I can quickly escape the tower and complete Breakneck melee only. There's some lore, which I can just skip through, especially when Bimbus over here says the line. I then walk in on a terminal overload that was almost done and just kind of go, why not? Which does grant me enough glimmer to finally masterwork my Karnstein armlets. After some brief conversation, we head into On the Verge. This requires me to use Strand. Yippee. I try to just immediately skip this jumping section, not entirely certain why, but I fail, so I go the normal way. And we run into the biggest issue, which is essentially the biggest problem in this entire challenge. This segment requires tangles to be thrown at Vex diamond thingies. This is an issue, because this is a melee-only run. However, for those of you not familiar with the channel, we have a little rule here that helps with moments like this. We call this R.E.P.S, the reasonable exception for puzzle solving. This states, damage can be dealt to only inanimate objects for the sole purpose of mandatory puzzles. I only ever bring this up when there's no other option, and having tested the power melee, I am now left with only tangles. So, I destroy the diamond thingies, move on to the next segment, which requires us to just do the same thing for a while, and then damage the big boss. Easy mission, easy boss, no comments. Mission 5 complete. Next up, no time left. Mission 6 starts out with clearing out this area, and using a super to destroy the suppressor, which again I'm going to file under as another instance of R.E.P.S. Then we move on to the next segment, and do the same. Clear some Cabal, this time with tank, and use a super to destroy the suppressor. I do try to just ram through this wall for a while with the tank, but eventually, gotta just shoot it to go through. Some movement and placement shenanigans allow me to break all of these fuel tanks, using explosions from somebody else, blowing me up. And after that is the first encounter with a Thresher, which goes well, all things considered. After that is the imprint of Nezarec. This fella gave me some issues. This encounter was just sprinting in circles, doing my best to survive while waiting for my abilities to recharge, because when I had abilities, I could survive any damage at all, so I could do damage. After much more of this than I'd like to admit, we quickly clean up the Cabal in the area, knock out the suppressors, and come to what I think might have been the worst section in the entire run. The very act of attempting to survive the Threshers, the Interceptors, and the Phalanxes, combined with the fact that you have to destroy the Threshers, the Interceptors, and the Phalanxes. I just need a quick moment here to discuss the fact that I despise Phalanxes. They are my mortal enemy. 75% of the time, they can just ignore any damage that you throw at them because giant shield, I can't aim my melee, mostly. They'll even block a fair amount of a powered melee. And then after they ignore your damage, they basically Mortal Kombat finisher you and send you either into low orbit or the nearest wall. And this combat encounter is essentially them. And then Threshers, which are flying enemies, and I can not really melee, because the second you die in this one encounter, it sends you all the way back. And I have 4 Threshers to deal with. It came to the point here that after I barely took down the last Thresher, and no longer had any sword ammo, that I made an exception to once again allow the glaive shots. If not, I would have been here for much longer, because I would have just been throwing single powered melees at everything very slowly. And I'm not sure I could have survived through that. I will not lie to you. Actually, just thinking about it is making me want to scream. So, after a 40-minute long run of just this single section, and I should clarify that this was 40 minutes, was the only successful run, we finally move on to the last section of Mission 6. Honestly, this was really easy in comparison. The constant adds left me with a lot of easy healing, my abilities kept me alive until I could make it into some cover, and after destroying the suppressor and destroying the tanks with my sword, Carl here goes down on the second try. Rohan then dies, yada yada, Calus throws a hissy fit, and we beat No Time Left. After that is the Hypernet Current Strike. I'm not going to lie to you, with all the upgrades they've been acquiring through this, combined with the experience from the last few missions, And the fact that this is on normal mode, this was a cakewalk. In and out, under 16 minutes. I don't enjoy most strikes, but at least this one is pretty short, so small mercies. We come then to the penultimate mission, Headlong, which famously caused me some issues in the trace rifle only run. But, just like then, the first section of this goes well enough. I abuse the ability to resurrect, solve some easy puzzles without breaking the rules for once, clear some more Vex, and head right into the Vex Network. This is a famously difficult segment to stay alive in. This final room has the spinning murder wall, constantly respawning ads. It's not pleasant most of the time. However, a commenter on a previous video reminded me that it is possible to hide behind these Vex portals and avoid most damage, and more importantly, the murder wall. Utilizing this technique, it was not too bad to deal with Ion. I don't know. The armlets put in some good work, letting the constant ad presence be more helpful rather than its usual hindrance. It still took some tries, but eventually the boss goes down, and we beat Mission 7, Melee only. And now, for desperate measures. The final mission of the Lightfall campaign. It is here that this chapter of this story will come to a close. And there is only one way that will happen. The death of Emperor Calus. It begins easily enough, the trek to the first real segment of the mission, just requiring some easy dodging and quick cleaning out at my part. Soon enough, though, we come to the first of 3 major hurdles, also known as the next 3 encounters in this mission. This segment, where we are required to destroy 2 anti-air guns, did not go well. Now, you might assume this is because this is a difficult mission that requires careful play and intelligent use of all assets at my disposal, and that is partially correct. The true issue, however, was the fact that I am stupid and cannot jump. Multiple times, just sent myself right off the edge, did no way to recover. I don't even think I pushed the jump button for this one, I'm not gonna lie to you. That shit was embarrassing. My one attempt at using Strand to counteract this just caused me to die anyway, because I no longer had any survivability. The final run included the shortest fight with a Tormentor in the whole campaign, which was still 5 minutes by itself, and saw me going back to an earlier fear of killing myself by accident, when I ended up needing to melee these bombs that were strangely stored on top of a gun. Thankfully, I survived, and headed into the next segment to begin protecting the Veil. This goes well enough. The tanks are, not gonna lie, a little rough with melee weapons, and when it's just me, I frequently have to abuse the ability to respawn. But once Keitel and her fellas show up, and things go into a darkness zone, things actually get a bit smoother. You know, the backup makes things a lot easier. I don't have to focus on everything at once. Granted, that doesn't mean everything goes easily. The fight with 2 Tormentors still didn't go well. Very frequently I die here, and this takes several tries, but compared to what comes next, this is nothing. We arrive then at the final showdown. Calus and I face off, and the first attempt goes better than I expect. Calus himself is not an issue, particularly when I decide to forego Solar for Strand, and I can rely on mobility to keep me alive, rather than my abilities. Add to that the many Scions and other Cabal in the arena, and my health can remain pretty high most of the time. The true issue is the Tormentors. I am unable to get rid of them, as I cannot pop their shoulders with any ease or regularity, and when they get close enough to me, they would only ever use the stupid stomp slam attacks that they have that suppress you, and just launch you off the side of the arena. Which leaves you to die from falling, rather than any actual skill issue or problems on your part that you could work to fix. In the end, I take the time to grab some options. Slowly over the course of the last few videos, in between them, I've been collecting backup weapons. This has primarily been swords that I could acquire from different sources, like Zur or Banshee, or even the sword from this episode, which is what I ended up using for a little while in this fight. The combination of caster frame, relentless strikes to keep the ammo in a good place when I'm doing close-up damage, and cold steel for the slowing effect was pretty good, actually. But it wasn't enough. So I was off to the relic to shape a Caretaker, a solar sword that can have surrounded and relentless strikes, which I equipped the enhanced forms of, and lead to my final build for now. I return to Calus fully equipped. We square up, and I start off by poking his toes right off the bat. Then, it comes to sprinting off and running like a bitch. The main goal here is to avoid Tormentors and allow the healing turret from Edge of Intent to charge. When it's charged, I can run into the center and use it to help me stay alive while I'm dealing big damage with the Glaive. I'm trying to save sword ammo up as much as possible, Because once I finally get to the second phase, once it's charged, I immediately drop the healing turret and begin slashing. This rips and shreds Calus' health, and allows me after that to keep up my hit and run techniques, grappling around to keep myself alive and out of the hands of the tormentors. In the end, Calus falls, and it's finally over. Nightfall has been beaten. Mostly melee only. From here, though, it is time to prepare. Soon we face the Witness, and for that I'll need every advantage, option, and dirty trick I can get my hands on. We've made some progress towards that in this video, but it can go further. Having beaten the Witch Queen allowed me to access the Edge of Intent, and by beating Beyond Light and now Lightfall, even more exotic swords and glaives are open to me, and I intend to use them to their full potential. But one thing right now is outside of my reach. One weapon that could change everything.
Are you sure about this?
We don't have any other leads. Until Mara can open that portal into the Traveler, our time is best spent searching for anything that can prepare us for the upcoming fight.
But the Vex Network? You're no Osiris, and I'm no Sagira. How can you be sure that will even return? Much less in any shape to fight the Witness.
We've done it before. Saint is proof of that.
Yes, but I've also read the reports coming out of Neomuna. The Vex tracked hundreds of copies of some Ishtar researchers who experimented on them. What's to say that won't happen to us?
It won't. I know it won't.
Do you remember what we saw last time, when we were searching for Saint? That tomb is...
I'm aware. That's what we're looking for, actually.
Why? Why didn't you tell me that?
I knew you'd try to stop me, or worse, tell the Vanguard and let them stop me.
Of course I would have. This is bad.
I know. But it's time to try. I need that sword.
This isn't like any portion of the Vex Network I've seen. How are they doing this?
I'm not sure. This isn't what I expected. I know it's not. It never is.
What did you say?
Nothing. Who was that? Come inside. It'll make more sense if you do. So, preparing to fight the Witness, are we?
Who are you?
A friend, you could say. I'm not Salvation, if that worries you. It doesn't answer the question. What are we doing here? Is this inside the Vex Network? If you want to be technical, it really isn't. The right application of light and darkness, plus a little help from a newly hatched friend, and I was able to hijack the Vex systems just long enough for this talk. And as to why you're here, I think you know. That sword on your back, it's the very same one you're looking for. You'll need it for the fights ahead.
But how?
Originally, it came to me through wicked manipulations in games. Courtesy of an old friend, you could call her. Savathun. Correct. I'm still not sure how she got her hands on it, but I wanted to spare you at least that little adventure.
I think he's still upset about it, to be honest.
It came with more strings attached than I could hope for.
Someone needed to step up after Zavala was gone. It's your fault for being such a figurehead, and that sword just sealed the image. Zavala? Gone? What are you talking about? What?
Our time runs short, both for this meeting and your time to prepare. When you return to your timeline, you'll have the sword. I don't think I need to tell you what is at stake, should you fail.
But we don't even... You'll know. You'll learn that the Traveler has at least one more ace up its sleeve to help you.
Now go. You can do this. Technically, you already have. You still haven't told us who you are.
Were you silly? Can't you tell?